What I'm trying to say is, because I know that you turned me into a vampire, maybe don't do that to him. He's a vegetarian. The last thing he'd want to do is eat a live being or eat blood or eat meat.
Vampires. These blood-sucking demons that somehow work their way into becoming seductive icons in teen-driven film franchises. Vampires have existed in films since the very first guy figured out how to hold a camera. These creatures have been cemented in our fantasy media, but vampires weren't always these sexy, emotionless sparkle diamonds. Vampires, for the most part, were these ugly, over-the-top presenters and kinda disgusting monsters that were more terrifying than anything. It wasn't until 2008, when Twilight hit the screen, that it changed the appeal of vampires forever, at least for teens. No longer were these creatures bald, creepy men in a dark hallway. Now they were sparkly, glittery, sexy Robert Pattinsons. Twilight caused havoc in the world of hormones and teen seduction, leading to fans to go absolutely insane over these hot fictional characters. But along with Twilight came the parodies. Films and comedy shows that wanted to make fun of the overdramatic craze of the entire series. You had Vampires Suck, Breaking Wind, and The Bachelor. Just so many vampire-related parodies. So of course, even Disney wanted to jump on that bandwagon as well with the release of the Disney Channel original movie, My Babysitter's a Vampire. While it isn't really a direct parody, a lot of the elements constantly reference their own fake version of Twilight as if it's making fun of the entire thing. But let me start by telling you right now, this movie is terrible. My Babysitter's a Vampire is a 2010 movie that was later followed up with a television show of the same name. But I'll only be talking about the movie because it's really the only thing that matters. In my last Do You Remember video, I talked about Total Drama Island, a show that was definitely more of a product of its time than a timeless work itself. My Babysitter's a Vampire is yet another work that was strictly a product of its time. But unlike how Total Drama Island has elements that show the show's quality that holds up to this day, My Babysitter's a Vampire does not hold up in any way. I remember being a prepubescent 11-year-old when this movie dropped, and I fondly remember all of my other prepubescent friends going absolutely crazy over this movie as well. Either way, this film did become somewhat of a hit amongst preteens and non-preteens. The movie follows the main characters of Ethan, Sarah, Benny, Rory, Roxy, and Erica. The movie opens like this. Like, goddamn, give me a moment to breathe, movie. So we start with Ethan's little sister watching the Twilight parody called Dusk. Ethan comes into frame with his friend Benny, and they talk about putting things in their mouth.
Why wouldn't you put 176 of these in your mouth? Yeah, right, it was 186.
The kid hears some banging outside and classically walks outside alone in the dark with her teddy bear. She finds this nerd hitting tennis balls against their garage, which just begs the question, why? What made this kid get the idea that, I'm so bored, I'm just gonna go hit tennis balls against this random person's garage? Like, I want a movie that follows him and his absolutely random decision-making skills. It's so absurd, but he dies before I can get what I want. The parents come and see the kid screaming outside. Ethan and Benny run outside with white stuff on their mouth. Oh boy, gotta censor that. And boom, we got our opening credits. I love how these opening credits are synced to an on-the-nose teen punk song. What you get is what you see. No more maybe, it's Maybelline. So many teen movies in the mid-2000s would literally do this with any basic punk song, which was always hilarious. Like, imagine if other movies had the opening credits with a punk song as well. Ethan and Benny go to school the next day and see a very skinny, pale kid foreshadow that he's a vampire.
French roast.
French roast.
Good choice.
Good choice.
They soon go to lunch, and Ethan of course spills his lunch on the girl that will later be the main love interest. So we then meet Erica, who is apparently a mega fan of the Twilight parody that exists within the movie, but more on her later. We also meet Roxy, who is a mega nerd, and you know that since he wears glasses and references Star Trek.
Star Trek is based on actual physics.
Way to go the extra mile. Benny then squirts his juices on Ethan, God, these guys just won't stop. And we see the main love interest, Sarah, talk to her obvious vampire boyfriend, Jesse. Later that night, the parents are getting ready for their Eyes Wide Shut party, but the babysitter is late. The babysitter is supposed to be Erica, but while she's on her way to her job, rip-off Chad McChadbro from High School Musical entices her to come on a date. We then get scenes where the big head vampire Jesse tries his absolute hardest to act intimidating.
I need some more time.
Talk. Time's up.
But his voice is so non-threatening. He sounds like frickin' Drew Gooden. Like, that's a voice you have fun with and play some Smash Bros together, not a bloodthirsty vampire that will attempt to murk you. Sarah and Jesse soon have a little tittle-tattle and he throws her. And oh boy, that tiny little PNG image is just so beautiful, so beautiful. She conveniently arrives at Ethan's place and takes a place as babysitter. The mom calls Ethan down to meet her, and just listen to this music cue. It's amazing. Benny comes over, which makes Sarah need to use the bathroom for some reason, and Ethan uses this as an opportunity to be a pervert.
Looking for something, or are you just an incredible perv?
No,
In this moment, we as an audience are obviously supposed to look at the mirror and be like, whoa, she has a weird reflection, she's a vampire. But literally all I can think of during this is how long the awkward pause is. She just stands there like she's waiting for Ethan to pick a dialogue option in a Telltale game. For some reason, she soon leaves right after that, and Ethan and Benny follow her with a camera. They find her in the alley eating a rat and doing vampire stuff, but for some reason, the movie gives her yellow eyes that makes her look like a werewolf from the Scooby-Doo movie, or like she's supposed to be in the Thriller music video. She does not look like a vampire. That's the worst eyes you could possibly give her. She then escorts them back to their house because it's a dangerous night, but then instantly leaves right after. While she's leaving, she tells them not to invite a vampire in, because they can't come in unless you invite them in. And literally 3 seconds later, they invite one in. Check out how his eyes are so incredibly inconsistent. Sarah soon wins the fight, and she straight up murks the pizza guy in front of the little sister, which is just weirdly violent. So she's gonna need therapy when she gets older. They then get a call that the nerd Roxy is at a vampire party, and they all plan to go to that vampire party and kill the fucking vamps. They do some stupid shit and get separated and pushed into a corner that they can't get out of, and Sarah threatens to kill them. She tears off wooden stakes from this very flimsy ass chair, but the chair is completely untouched in the next shot. They all go home to regroup for the next battle. The next day, Rory and Erica ditch their glasses, which make them super hot now. I don't know why people behind the movie think, oh, if we just give our characters glasses, they aren't as hot, and they are just super nerdy. And like, no, that's so dumb. Just because you remove the glasses doesn't change their appearance in any way. I mean, they're still hot with the glasses. It's so dumb. They find out that the vampires are going to be hosting the Dusk premiere, and they're gonna like kill them and get all their souls. So Ethan, Benny, and Sarah ambush them with a bunch of holy water and shit, and they just burn them alive. They then fight Jesse alone, and the souls he captured kills him or something, and it's just like, alright, it's the end. And that was it. It was such an anticlimactic ending. They didn't really fight him. And that's why Babysitter's a Vampire. This is a movie that feels like it was strictly made to capitalize on the Twilight craze. It attempts to parody it at times by having its own parody set within the world, but the movie itself does nothing to give itself identity. It never once explains about anything in its own world and how the vampires exist or what their powers even are. It strictly assumes that you know everything about teen vampires already and you should just go along with everything that happens. I mean, at points they have super speed and the ability to jump high and super strength or something, but they give up on running after a car or they struggle to break down a door. And you just scream at the vampires like, stop being dumbasses. I don't know what about this movie made it so memorable in my mind as a kid, as well as my friends' minds. I think something about the characters are just so intriguing. While they are never really fleshed out and they do simply the dumbest things, some of their bad acting is particularly charming.
I had garlic bread for lunch, and I am not afraid to use my breath.
Would you both just...
The movie doesn't really have a third line plot, kind of just feels like two movies strung together. You have the whole first half where they learn about the vampires and stuff and they try to save their friends, and then you have the second half where they learn more about the vampires and they try to save normal Twilight fans. It doesn't really have a set goal or any character arcs that you should be invested in. Like, sure, there's kind of a bad guy, but he doesn't really do much except kill a couple people and that's it. For my generation, this was basically the movie for teens that didn't like Twilight to fan over. It basically does so little with anything vampire-like, instead throw you a couple fights and lore about holy water every now and then, and that's incredibly disappointing. If you're watching this, you probably remember the movie, but it's best you forget this one.